If you're like most folks Dr. Kris Fusterhausen works with, you're active, you want to take ownership of your health, and you want to age gracefully. The problem is there is so much conflicting information out there about health and wellness, it's tough to know who to trust. Most providers are limited by what insurance will approve, so it can seem like they're only able to help you manage your health decline with more meds. On the Dr. Kris Life podcast, you'll learn how you can regain your confidence in your health journey. You'll learn helpful knowledge about programs, supplements, peptides, and hormones that Dr. Kris has used with thousands of patients just like you to help them crush their goals and be their best selves. So if you're ready to take charge of your health and are wanting to stay active and healthy so you can be a better parent, partner, or lover, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Dr. Kris podcast. All right, and we're live now. We've been calling this series the Low P series. Low P as in low peptides. Peptides and age management with Dr. Kris Fusterhausen with the Research Clinic. Dr. Kris, welcome.
Hi, Steve. Good to talk to you as always.
And we have a surprise guest today. His name's Maury DePorter. Maury, welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
So, Dr. Kris, why don't you tell us a little bit about Maury, bring him on, and tell the audience what's up here.
So I'll tell you a little bit about Maury, and then I'll let him, of course, tell his story a little bit more if he'd like to. Maury, you've been with us now. How long has it been? A year and a half?
It's been two. Yeah, about
two. Man, time flies. So I've been lucky enough to have a couple other good trainers in my life, but I think Maury has made the most difference for me personally, as much as sometimes I want to turn around and walk out in the morning when I see what's on the whiteboard. He puts up with me most of the time, but Maury actually was a practicing chiropractor actually prior to this, and I think you can tell how you want to tell it, Maury, but I think he kind of decided this was more to his liking, and he really. I think what separates him from a lot of other, there's many things that separates him from other trainers, but he's really into functional training. I guess he is truly about doing everything properly, with not letting you cheat or I have some of the worst dysfunction, and he's always on me. And I'm not perfect, but he certainly has made me so much better. I was telling somebody the other day that, except from some soreness I had a few days ago, and I was set up for surgery 3 or 4 years ago for a laminectomy. I have, between peptides and exercise, I practically have zero back pain now. And if somebody would have told me that just 3 or 4 years ago, I'd have said, you're crazy. It just didn't seem like it was in my future. And so I just think that there's a lot of people out there who struggle with where to get started with exercise, or maybe they're already exercising. They go to the gym, they think they're exercising properly when they're probably not. I know me, and I say most people, the majority, maybe the vast majority, will not properly work out on their own. I think trainers are worth their weight in gold. I mean, they really, really are. I know I would not go out into that gym and do the filthy 50 by myself. My wife would. I would not. Okay. And I'm being honest when I say that, but then when you get a couple other people doing it, and it actually, you get it done and you feel accomplished. And then you have a guy like Maury looking after you, making sure that you're not cheating and you're not using bad technique. I guess that's the phrase I should use. And so, we've had just a few customers lately that have switched from another trainer over to, I worked on one of them for about a year now, and he finally switched over. And he literally texts me, and I haven't even told you this, Maury. He texted me yesterday and thanked me for introducing to Maury and how much of a difference he's made in his life in 2 weeks. Just in 2 weeks, how much of a difference he's made. This is a guy that's been working out for the last few years with another trainer. Anyway, that's kind of a long intro. We really like having Maury part of our practice. Maury's actually the one that introduced me to intermittent fasting. So all the intermittent fasting talk that I talk about started with Maury. And then Dr. Seeds kind of followed that up. So anything you'd like to add, Maury, I'll turn it over to you.
The intermittent fasting, that's my trick to get results from my clients, really. But I appreciate that. Dr. Kris. I think that quality, in how we do is more important than necessarily what we do. So yeah, taking your time to learn things is very key. So.
I worked out with a personal trainer for a while, and here's where I think he really inspired me. I learned how to work out when I was in high school with working out for football. And the way that you approach weight training and street training at that time is way different than what you would do at my age now. And so what I really appreciated, he prevented me from hurting myself, because there's this, am I working out hard enough or am I not working out enough? You never know. And to have someone that's leading you, coaching you, and keeping you out of danger, I think so valuable.
I've got a 62-year-old brother who is in fantastic shape. I'm not going to knock him at all. But he kept trying to lift weights like he was 32. Mm-hmm. And I kept trying to tell him, his name's Johnny. I'm like, Johnny, you got to quit lifting this heavy, you're going to hurt yourself. And he always liked to say, well, I'm at the gym and the guys look up to me because I'm 60 years old and I can lift this heavy. And then his rotator cuffs tore. Mm-hmm. And he had to have complete reconstruction over the summer. And I think he's learned his lesson, but as we age, I like to always say, do you know what the favorite term to an orthopedist is? Mm-hmm. CrossFit. And so many of orthopedists' lake house is paid for by CrossFit, and CrossFit can be great. I'm not saying it's bad, but what happens is you get a guy my age trying to compete with a 20-year-old who obviously has more flexibility, and ligaments and tendons are a little more youthful and healthy. You start to try to compete or, do what they're doing. And sometimes that works, many times it doesn't. And so you just have to be careful as you age. And that's what Maury's always talking about. At least the point that I get from him is I'd rather you do 5 properly than do 15 sloppy reps.
For sure.
What's the difference between the CrossFit philosophy and the way that you approach personal training, Maury?
Well, I would say CrossFit's it is more competitive. So it's easy to push across, go too far with it. But really what they do, I definitely appreciate the gains you can make and the positives from that. But again, it's back to, how you do things. Make sure that you stay within proper form, and maybe the goal needs to be health rather than winning or taking that next step as far as personal bests and that. So just controlling the way you do things. So.
I like to tell when patients ask me how I describe how Maury trains, and Maury, I hope you don't take offense to this, I say CrossFit-like. And so I think there's some very similar parts to CrossFit to what Maury does. But what's different is most CrossFit gyms, you throw 20, 30 people into a big facility and they're all doing these same exercises. And they typically have one instructor / trainer looking over them. And there's no way one person can be watching every single person. Maury, I think, tries to keep it usually to 4 or less. And so, I think some of the exercises that Maury uses are the same. Some are different, but it's in smaller groups. It's very supervised. We're not here to try to, like one of our partners we work out with, I call him country strong. He's just a naturally strong, big frame guy. And I know there's some things I can't compete with him on that. I'm going to hurt myself if I try to do that, and vice versa with some other people that I can lift heavier than they can. I don't care about who can lift the heaviest anymore. It's just about being fit. Not at 48, 50. It's just not worth it. But that's how I describe it to patients when they talk to me about Maury. But he also, and again, I'll let you jump in, Maury, after this. He tailors it to the person and where you're at with your fitness. Somebody rolls off the street and hasn't exercised in 10 years. They're not going to get the same workout that Maury and I and Chad did that morning. But I'll let you talk a little more about that, Maury.
Right. Sure, we'll modify it. Ultimately, I throw a workout up on the board, and I try to get all my clients to do that, but in different ways. Modify it, where someone, if we do a squat and that squat needs to be supported rather than adding resistance, then we'll go with that. Wherever you're at on that move, we want to make sure that we don't do more than we need to. Quality reps, 3 or 4 sets, and make sure you get to fatigue rather than wasted reps. Maybe that's kind of how I look at it. So
one thing, Maury, is maybe to discuss about the different movements that you think are important in each workout, because you're always talking about your
sure, the PSP.
Yeah.
So I break most of the workouts down into 5 movements, and so we usually do some sort of a push, followed by some sort of a squat, some sort of a pull, a hip hinge, and a core stabilization. So the push to start out would be, push up, bench press, overhead press, something like that. But done really well. Then moving on to a squat variations. You can use, like I said, TRX band to support the squat, take some resistance away, or we can add some resistance with some weight, some front squat, kettlebell, maybe in a goblet squat position. And then the pull, like a pull-up or a row, something like that, TRX row. And then the hip hinge, which is one that I think that gets, not a lot of people do that. The hip hinge, working the hamstrings and the glutes, that's an important move that we try to do every workout. And then, of course, core stabilization. But we'll work vertically, meaning we'll hit one of those exercises followed by the next, go through those 5 before we move on to the next round. Sometimes we'll change it up and we'll work horizontally, where we're just doing all of our push exercises. But that's when we're, we'll do that at least once or twice a week. And then maybe on that other day, we'll throw something different in there, something a little bit more CrossFit-like.
The thing I think really helped me with the personal trainer situation was there's this certain amount of shame or disappointment you have in yourself when you realize how much you let yourself go. And then when you walk in and you try to work out the first time and you really get hit in the face, how your breathing's really bad, how weak you are in certain areas. And that's a hard thing to kind of get past. And my personal trainer really helped me power through that. And really, that's the first hurdle you have to get over before you start getting over soreness. That's that emotional soreness that you incur.
I agree, Steve.
One thing that one of the guys that when I was with Synergenics, one of their main doctors was Dr. Jeff Life. He's still doing well. He was that guy, I don't know if you remember, at the American Airlines, when you'd fly, you'd pull the little magazine out in front of you, and it always had an ad of this guy who in one picture was sitting on a boat and he was overweight, and in the next picture he's like, all ripped up. That's Dr. Life. And I've had the pleasure of meeting him a few times, and he's one of my mentor / business partner, Dr. Thompson's really good friend. And he always made the point, he always had this theory that if you miss the gym for 1 week, you mentally completely start over when you step foot back into the gym. And not too long after that, you physically start all over as well. And so his point that he always made when I would hear him lecture was, even when you go on vacation, do some sort of physical activity / workout, even if it's a crappy one, but just to keep your brain, locked in on working out, because, you go away for 6 days to Cancun and lay on the beach every day and blow yourself up like a whale from alcohol and food. And then you come back and you say, tomorrow I'll get to the gym. And then before you know it, 2-3 weeks has gone by and you have to come back to Maury and start all over again. And so I just think it's really important for when you get over that initial phase, which will pass in 2 to 3 weeks. Just keep at it. Even if it's little bitty workouts, do them, stay active. And I did this, I think it was towards the end of last year. I got to where I was really busy and I started skipping my workouts, and I looked up and in a month I'd worked out like 3 times, and it took so much mental anguish to get myself back into the gym, because that's what our brain does to most of us. If it just fights us when it goes to the gym. Once you're in it, you realize how great it is, how good you feel, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you're gonna have times when you just can't get in. Things are gonna happen. So, I try to put the focus on where you're going, not where you're at necessarily, but where you're going, and that might ease that emotional aspect of it.
So we're talking about combining a little personal training with maybe some intermittent fasting, some of the ketone esters, maybe some peptides. Kind of talk to us about what's a good way to look at that, and then kind of weave it in for optimum value of your training.
Okay, so intermittent fasting, I've told Kris this, is I look at it as a hack. It's a real easy way to get that nutrition straightened around. So it's starting with like the 16-8 intermittent fasting. It's just it's shrinking down that time that you're eating to 8 hours. So there's less time to have the wheels fall off. So it's just, when people first come in, I'll have them work with the intermittent fasting, and that's usually enough to give them the results that they start going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's very, very important.
So stopping eating at 8 and starting again at noon.
That's a good place to start right there. I think that's a good place to start. Some might say that that's a little late to eat, but I think that it's more about that window than it is about when you stop. I mean, it's a point. We're all different, so you got to figure out what works for you. But that's where I started. With the 12-8.
No, and I agree, Maury. And when you can get them to not eat for 16 hours, it does lower your calorie count, because most people aren't going to try to make up for the food that they haven't eaten in the 8 hours. But also you're pushing that insulin level super low during that 16-hour fast. And that allows your body to metabolize better, use those fat cells for energy. And that's the perfect place to throw the ketone esters in, is when you're doing the intermittent fasting. I really think they go hand in hand, like lock and key. I mean, you're already fasting, and now you're going to throw in the ketone esters to throw yourself into true ketosis for a few hours, 3 or 4 hours, to really burn those fat cells, because very few of us don't have a few extra fat cells to burn. And so, but ketone esters, they're not just for burning fat cells, they're also for cognitive function. Most people who take ketone esters truly feel like they're more mentally alert. The nice thing, and so I was telling y'all before we came on, I've been doing even more research on ketone esters, and the great thing about it is that it does not have any caffeine-like effects. You don't get jitteriness, you don't get agitation. But if you mix it with caffeine, it can have an amplified effect with your caffeine. So that was one of the things that I had learned, because I mixed mine with caffeine. I realized I was a little more jittery than normal. And so you can get a 2-3-fold effect with your caffeine when used with ketone esters. So the little blog that I was just doing just basically says, if you do use caffeine with ketone esters, just, go slow and, low and slow, and work your way up, preferably even without the caffeine though. But I think that's the intermittent fasting is something most people can do. It costs nothing. And it keeps them committed. And so, because I think one thing, Maury, that maybe you can expound upon, we've talked a lot about how, and I think we all kind of naturally do this, we kind of toe up to the line of success. with exercise and nutrition, and then we totally shoot all 4 wheels off for like a week or two, and then we got to like put our cart back together and start over again. And that was one of the discussions we have, is trying to figure out with patients how to limit, the towing of the line of fitness and actually crossing over the line. Because once you cross over, it's really hard to go back over the fence, but you get right up there on it, and then you just let your wheels fall off of it. But more, I'll let you kind of talk about it, because I know that's a topic we've discussed.
Yeah, right. And when you're talking like with that, there's a threshold that you have to cross over, right? And there's a lot of work to be done to get to that threshold, but you're not going to see results until you get past that. Well, all that work to get here, you got to take it a little bit further, right? To get those results. So I think that's a really good point. So, I look at it with fasting. I look at it with everything, but it goes back to that quality over quantity. If you fast for, let's say I fasted for 12 hours and I reached that point where I'm going to get into ketosis, well, maybe I need to go 30 minutes after to get here. Well, at 30 more minutes, and I'm a little bit further. And I mean, I'm sure there's a line where you don't want to cross and you want to take it kind of slowly, but you can build on that where you are burning fat maybe twice as long as you would have in a 24-hour period just by adding an hour. So I think that we tend to work to a point where maybe we're comfortable, but in order for your body to make a change, sometimes you gotta push it. It's going to respond to that. So, and that goes with fitness as well. So, and I've seen a lot of people work to that point right here without crossing that line, and they're like, you know what, that's enough. I think I'm going to stop right here. When they've done all that work to get here, now they just got to push a little bit further, and within quality, and that's what it takes, I think, to achieve the goals.
I see a lot of the theme of the conversations that we've been having, Dr. Kris, is around activities that generate cell senescence. Yeah, that's easy for me to say. But it's like all these little things. When you say ketosis, most people go, "Oh, you mean burning the fat on my body?" But actually, there's a lot more to it than just burning fat.
Yeah, so ketosis is one of those things that I've kind of gone back and forth on, and I like ketosis, but I've come around to where I like it in bursts. Kind of like you and I've talked about, Steve, how we like certain peptides. We like to use them and rotate them in, rotate them out of a protocol. I like to rotate ketosis in and out. Now, I don't mind if a person wants to do a ketogenic diet for a few weeks, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. I think a ketogenic diet truly is hard for most people to continue long term. The studies show that. Again, ketogenic diet, in my opinion, being less than 5% carbs per meal. The average American has 50% carbs per meal. I prefer low carbohydrate diet, which my definition of that is 25 to 27% carbs per meal. I think that's something we can live with and do. And I simply just tell my patients, I'll get back to the ketogenesis part here in a second, but I like to just tell my guys and girls, if it's white, you've heard me say this, if it's white and you eat it and it's not cauliflower, try to limit it in your diet. Try not to make it a staple. Try to rotate it, have it, pick from that group of 5, maybe 2 to 4 times a week and have them, but not every single meal. Heck, it can be as simple as hamburger and fries to maybe getting the hamburger with just lettuce on top, and some fruit, some berries or something. And that's a whole lot better than a burger and fries. Maybe not optimal, but it's not bad. But the issue I have with ketogenesis long term is you see these gains, but then it kind of burns itself out with time. And kidney stones, gallstones go up with long-term ketogenesis. Your gut health goes down and you lose immunity. And they've actually shown that athletic performance long-term starts to dip, but short-term it increases. And that's why I really have fallen in love with the ketone esters, is because we're throwing that ketosis, that ketotic state in there for a few hours, getting all those advantages of ketogenesis. And then 12 to 8, I'm recommending a low carbohydrate diet, which probably will not actually have you producing ketones at that time. So you're not getting the long-term stuff that I just talked about. It's kind of the best of both worlds. But when it comes back to cell senescence, it's this conversation that never ends. Like, patients are like, how do I prevent cell senescence? Well, let's talk. I always like to say it's like A plus B plus C plus D plus E equals X. And I don't know how much of each of those is it, but, we may end up with 8 to 10 things that we're trying to do. But most of them are very simple, very small things that are very easy to do. Unfortunately, at the moment, we can't draw blood and quantify how much cell senescence you have. We go by your physical exam, your history, your genetics, your DNA age, your biologic age. Those are the things that we can use to quantify cell senescence at the moment. So anyway, I just think that, like we said, it's kind of the mantra of the talks, is just trying to figure out a way for each person to live as well as they can. And not everybody's going to do everything, but they can pick some of these things that they can associate with, that they can do and feel good about.
I think what helped me really when you talked about cell senescence was the image of, you have these healthy cells that know that they're getting sick and then will terminate themselves or regenerate. Then you have other cells that just kind of linger around and as zombies and cause trouble.
Right.
And so the activities that you're talking about is basically zombie reduction, reducing the zombie cells. So one day I'm doing intermittent fasting. I may be doing some peptides. Maybe I'm doing the ketone esters. These are all pretty much helping clean house of my cells. And that little thing really helped me.
Yeah, Dr. Seeds, and I know I go back to him a lot, but he's made a big difference in my life as a physician and as a patient, is, it's so elementary of a thought that we just want our cells to work properly and communicate. And all diseases improve somewhat from just cells working properly. I mean, it's a very elementary thought. It's very much biology 101. There's nothing, earth-shattering about this thought, but it's something that most doctors don't practice, about how to go back and get your cells to communicate properly. Again, I'm a firm believer that cell senescence is the cause of aging. Aging is an actual ICD-10 diagnosis now, aging. Some of us are aging more rapidly than others, and we can't stop it, but we sure do want to slow it down. And once a cell is truly senescent, you can't reverse it. But those cells that are kind of working their way to 100% locked in, those are the cells that we want to try to reverse and get rid of or repair. The body is an amazing thing, but it's not meant to live forever, but we sure can, I think, keep us living healthier and with more longevity by doing some of these. I like the term that I always forget the term that Maury used, but the hack, kind of the biohack. I've started hearing that term more.
I use that because it is easy. Seems easy.
Yeah,
it's kind of a negative term.
And can spell it.
It can be it looks.
How do you spell senescence? Yeah, hack. Cell hack.
Do you know, I can't spell for to save my life, and sometimes I'll type out senescence, and I'm like, is that right? I mean, I'm a horrible speller.
There's a C in there somewhere. Right?
Yeah. There's a Y. Is there a Y? Yeah, it's a French word, so it's their fault. So all right. So here we are. Where do peptides fit into this and complement? Maybe you get to the point where, all right, I'm working out a little bit. I'm doing some intermittent fasting. I'm drinking some Alka-Seltzer Gold once a day. Where do the peptides fit in?
Is that for me?
Why don't you jump in there, Maury? Because I'll follow up on you. But you're kind of a person that got introduced to peptides, and I think you can speak on it from a personal experience and with your thoughts.
Sure. So let's start at about age 38. I'm 46 now, but started breaking down tendon overuse injuries, and dealt with those. trying to learn as much as I could to get rid of that. A very difficult thing to get rid of, whether it was plantar fasciitis, tendonitis in the elbow. Just really struggled with that for a long time. And 2 years ago, I started taking the BPC, and I do anecdotally attribute that to helping me get rid of that the tendonitis, especially the plantar fasciitis that I had in both feet. So
that's BPC 157.
Yes, BPC
Okay.
157. So that's my experience with that, and I've also used the CJC epimorelin, and just to me, again, this is my experience with it, that it's helped my workouts. I'd say, I guess it helps with recovery. What I see is that it helps me with recovery,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something that I can feel is helping me along the way. So,
And recovery is like, it's a lot of soreness. It's like, I've always felt I was in some state of recovery, after I never
Sure.
could get out of that soreness stage.
I work out with Maury some days, and I think he works out a couple times a day most of the time, but he says he doesn't. But anyway, I've seen him getting stronger, and here's a 46-year-old guy who's getting stronger at 46. Now, Maury is somewhat of a freak, I will tell you. He's very athletic and very gifted there. Plays soccer all day long on Sundays, and gets a lot of activity, which I think is pretty amazing for a 46-year-old guy, that he's able to do these things with not a whole lot of injuries here lately. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I don't look at genetics as being involved there too much. I think we all have an ultra athlete in us. I really do. And if right here is the ultra athlete and this is not so much, well, we're all in that spectrum somewhere, and it's just about pushing in the right direction. Like I said, it's about acceleration rather so than velocity. When I was 30, I was not in good shape at all, and I had a couple kids. I had to start thinking about my future, and that's what got me more involved in fitness and nutrition, especially. So, I've been working at it for 16 years now. So, I do keep trying to push, and I do feel like I'm in as good a shape as I've ever been. So, I think it's it's there for all of us.
So would you guys approach a combination of therapy and a workout protocol with a woman different than a man? How would you approach that to really fine tune that, where each one can take advantage of their natural?
I would, like I said, we all do pretty much the same thing. We just do it differently. I think we all need the same thing. So, doing things right, pushing the correct form so that we have that range of motion, that strength, try to get rid of imbalance. I think those are the keys. So I think that we should all be focusing on similar things. We just do them differently.
Push, pull, squat, hip hinge, and a core.
Yes.
Yeah.
Push, squat, PSPHC is what, and it's not always in that order. And like I said, we do some crazy stuff too. But
yeah.
But it's always going to be that functional full body base that we work with. So
squat's the one I gotta be forced to do the squat thing. Yeah.
He hears me talk about them all the time, but they're so important, Steve. They really are. And like our morning group that typically works out, it's Crisanta, my wife, she's doing the same workout we're doing. She's just, not doing the same amount of weights, but we're all doing at the end of the day, basically the same exercises. And, like, he had 50 burpees as part of a workout yesterday, I think it was. And they're really hard on me because of my low back. So he let me do a kind of a sissy burpee, but a modified burpee, as he made me feel better by calling it modified burpee.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's where you have to customize it for each person.
Sure.
But I'd like to speak a little bit more, though, about Steve, about your how to kind of rotate in peptides or that sort of thing. And
yeah,
the truth is there's every person's totally different, and we have to look at each one's situation. Some people come here and they simply work out with Maury, and really they work out with Maury. Maury, I think, gives everyone nutritional advice and intermittent fasting advice, which is nutritional advice, and they discuss that, and that's really all they do. They work out, they take his advice, they do that. We have others that want to take it further, and my preference would be for everybody who's 35 or older, or who has any real symptoms of deficiencies of like weight gain or not feeling good, or hair, skin, nail issues, hot flashes, to get labs and look at their hormone panels. Then that's whenever I would look at hormones, possibly hormone replacement, possibly customize a peptide program for them if they have that interest, because all we're doing is, I tell patients, I think it really stinks for people who work out hard, whose biochemistry is fighting them the whole way. If everything's out of whack, like I saw a new lady a couple of days ago, and all of her hormones were completely depleted. And, her big thing was, I can't lose weight. And I'm like, of course you can. I mean, your body is literally fighting you down this path. And so I just think, it's a good idea. If you're gonna put all the blood, sweat, and tears into this, you might as well get everything checked. Make sure you're checking all the boxes if you can.
Absolutely.
So what's maybe I'm listening to this, I don't live in your area, but is there a way, Maury, that I could communicate with you, and maybe every day your workout program I could maybe know about? Maybe I need a TRX system or something where I can just do it in the house. Talk to us about maybe some possibilities there, and then Dr. Kris, we might talk about how you would work with someone to help them get their chemistry aligned.
Sure. Contact me just through phone, and just start from there. I usually bring my clients in, and we do a little meet and greet, just talk it out, and starts there, and then we move on to an evaluation type of a workout and kind of see where we're headed. Everyone's different, so and a lot of times I'll be like, well, I think blood work, you need to get some things checked out. You need to go chat with Dr. Kris, and then take care of everything right off the bat there, so that, like Dr. Kris said, you're not spinning your wheels working out when your hormones aren't right. When that can be, that's hard mentally. When if that's not right, I've seen it. You're just not going to get anything accomplished. So
on our end, Steve, we can certainly do a lot of what we like to do remotely. I do still like that first visit to be face-to-face. I just think it's important to sit down in a room and like we had a lady, I think it was last Friday, that was desperate to get me to prescribe peptides for her. But unfortunately, I have to be able to, because she was out of state, I have to be able to establish her as a Texas patient. And so I don't know what she decided. She was contemplating actually flying in from LA to come see us because she's seen some of our stuff. And even in LA, she was having a hard time, finding a physician to prescribe peptides. Hard to believe.
Crazy.
We actually gave her some options because, a lot to ask somebody to fly from LA to, especially right now.
Mhm.
But, what I would tell I would tell anybody out there listening that's interested is, hey, you don't have to be in my area. DFW is a pretty easy area to travel to. Come in. We can actually get your blood drawn in wherever you're at in America. We can get your blood drawn, make sure it's resulted. You fly in, spend a few hours with us, can be back to the airport by nightfall, be back home that night, get a plan together, and from there on, we can pretty much do everything via Skype from that point on, and then they can then choose when they want to come back to the office for any other follow-ups. That's certainly a very doable on our part.
Yeah, I think that it's hard for someone to first know exactly what they should be doing. I think most people want to improve in some way, but again, we're lost in this fog of all this varied information that's not connected, and you're just guessing. It feels like you're guessing. You know you should work out, but I don't know where to start. I need some motivation. I need some direction, and to have a team like you guys to coach me a little bit, even if it's remotely. After that it was like a huge improvement over what I have or what I conceived that I could have right now, plus all the treatment opportunities that exist that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, it's a really a cool time to be in functional medicine. I mean, it's things are rapidly changing, and probably even in a year we'll have even better stuff to talk about. I mean, it's always changing, and so it's sounding like some of the peptides that we had lost or hadn't been able to prescribe for a while might be back to where we can use those. The BPC, like I've talked about, going over the counter has been huge. There's just a lot. It's a really fast changing but cool time to be in this field of medicine.
So the BPC, that's 157, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that you take orally that helps your intestinal plus your soreness plus some other things.
Yeah, so again, BPC does come as an injectable. That is still prescription only. I typically use the injectable for people in acute pain. I just had my ACL repaired, or I just think I, hurt my rotator cuff, or hey, I've got sciatica with pain going down my butt cheek and my leg. That's where I use the injectable for those more intense type situations. And then the oral has a lot of different factors. It works with cell senescence. It is excellent for the GI tract, for reflux, for irritable bowel, for inflammatory bowel. It's made in the gut, so that's where it comes from. Neurologically, we use it for people with history of concussions, multiple sclerosis, ALS, dementia, Parkinson's. And then again, we can use it for more generalized aches and pains. We did a workout on Friday that I had bad form on, and I knew I did. And I got quite a bit of, that was the first time I'd had the back pain in like a year. I took some oral BPC, and like within an hour and a half, it had probably cut itself in half, and so easy on, safe for the stomach versus like Motrin and those sorts of things. So it's a really, really great product. I talk about it a lot because it really is one of my favorites. Really great product. And actually, so my next course that we're going to is in a month. It's a month from today, actually, and it's all about neurologic disorders. So we're really excited. The whole 2 days is going to be about neurologic disease. So it'll be exciting to talk about that when we get back.
All right. So peptides, which are naturally occurring in the body, and the ones that you're talking about, you call them bioidentical.
Well, again, most of them are. There are a few that are synthetic, but a lot of the peptides are bioidentical. BPC is a bioidentical. And then the other one that's going to be really popular for patients who are working out, trying to kind of speed the process up safely, is the CJ-ciperamorelin, which is the one that stimulates growth hormone production and release in our anterior pituitary gland. It's not growth hormone. It just works on the growth hormone axis and is extremely safe and is a great way to increase that fat burning and muscle growth, especially when combined with proper nutrition and exercise.
All right. So, Dr. Kris, tell us how people can get a hold of you, contact you, enlighten us on that, please.
Yeah. So website, theresearchclinic.com. You'll find all of our information there. Of course, you can also email me directly at Dr. Kris with a K at theresearchclinic.com. Either way is perfectly fine.
And Maury,
or even comment on our Facebook page. That's another way we will reach out to you.
Oh, yeah. Maury, so you've been an excellent surprise guest.
Thank you, Steve.
And this has been good. We'll have you back on for sure. But if folks maybe are interested in connecting with you and maybe getting an idea of what things would look like working with you, how do they reach you? Either
through the research clinic. My card's at the front, or so you can leave me a message on, I got an Instagram, Research Clinic Gym. You can check that out, Research Clinic Gym. Send me a message through that, or Facebook as well. Facebook is Physiolab 360. Physiolab 360.
Physio with the
Physio,
F.
yeah. The PY or PHY.
Exactly.
As I know.
All right.
Sure.
Well, good. I appreciate you guys. So if anyone's listening and you can imagine us talking about your business online on a regular show like this, you can reach out to me, Steve Brown, at ROI Online. That's Steve at ROIonline.com. And thanks, guys, for being on the show.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Steve.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining the Dr. Kris podcast. If you learned something today and you want to connect and get more information, visit our website, www.drkris.life, where you can find more great information or even schedule a time to learn how you can engage with Dr. Kris. Be sure to follow, like, share, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Dr. Kris podcast.